All right, 24/7. So excited to be back with y'all today. My name is Ty, and we are going to continue. And really, I would say the climax of the story about Jonah. This is the middle part. So if you got your Bibles, go ahead and turn to Jonah chapter 1, verses 17 and we're going to go through chapter 2. And as I'm thinking about this, let's just give a summary, like where are we at right now? So Jonah has disobeyed God. He's gone in the opposite direction. He's going towards Tarshish. He's going towards Spain. And God actually sends a storm on a boat with a bunch of sailors. And the sailors have thrown him out of the boat. And so in this moment where we're at in the story, he is currently drowning. He is sinking in the ocean, and it's not looking good for him. And it's kind of funny as I think about this whole story that even Jonah is running away. That he's running away in a world that God created. And so I know a lot of y'all got these crusty white little dogs. They've got their eyes, they're all crusty, and their mouths are stained with some kind of brown. I don't even know. I've never had one, but I have friends who do, and I know y'all got some too. A couple years ago, I was with a friend, and the dog was trying to escape outside. And so it was in his hand, and it actually went through my friend's legs and started sprinting. It's escaped. It's out in the backyard, and it thinks it has freedom. It's so funny, though, that the backyard is actually all fenced in. And so this dog thinks it is escaping its owner, but it really isn't. And it's the same way with Jonah. He thinks he's escaping God. But if God actually created the world, if we're saying that this is a God, he created the world, then there's just not a lot of places for him to really run. He can't really go anywhere because this is the world that God created. But still, he ran from God. And so we pick back our story. Here's verse 17. Here's where we are. He's a crusty white little dog running away from the Lord. Here's what he says in verse 17. It says, "Now the Lord had arranged for a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights." I know a lot of times we tell this story of Jonah as a little kid story, but let me just be honest 24/7. This is not a little kid story. If you want that, then you can get that version of it somewhere else. But Jonah is drowning in the ocean. And a word that the Bible uses for ocean, and kind of it's a symbol for it, it's chaos. That Jonah is thrown into the chaos of the water. He is alone and he is drowning. So I just want you to picture this idea that water is going down his throat and getting into his lungs, and it is burning. He is about to die, certainly. But this verse is very clear. Go ahead and circle this word. It says arranged. Now the Lord has arranged. Other translations will say that he provided, he appointed, he prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah. I think we get caught up on the fish a lot. We don't know what kind of fish it was. All we know right now is that God arranged this fish to save him. And it's really weird that God actually saved Jonah's life through a fish. So he's drowning, he's in the ocean, and God saves him. So I've got this picture here of the ocean, right? He is in the ocean waves. And I'm going to draw Jonah right here. Jonah is falling down into the chaos of the world. And for some unlikely reason, God sends a fish. And let's just think about this for a second, 24/7. Like, why did God actually have to save him in this moment? Was the God of the universe who created the backyard that we're living in right now, was he required to? And really, did he even have to save him? Couldn't he have just sent someone else to preach to the Ninevites? It's interesting. This is interesting ideas. I don't have all the answers for those. All I know is that the same hand who he hurled the storm and caused the waves, also calmed them. The same God who Jonah deliberately was disobeying also saved him in one of the most unlikely ways. And all I know is that's just saying that God is super merciful. That he didn't let Jonah stay in the chaos of this moment, but actually sent salvation through a fish. What a God. I don't understand it all. I just know that God takes Jonah out of the chaos he has caused and lets him breathe in the belly of the fish for 3 days. And this is an interesting idea as well, that he is now in this fish. I don't know what it's like. It's smelly. It's just not really great, I would say. And this reminds me when I was a kid, I got in trouble a lot, especially around like 3, 4, 5 years old. And my parents had this special place in the house that they called the timeout corner. That there was a chair in the corner of the house that I would go to and sit and breathe for a second after I have just thrown a temper tantrum. And it was one of the worst moments because I hate sitting in a chair, even right now. Like I hate sitting in this chair because I want to go. I want to do things. So it was a punishment for me. That's kind of like God's time, or that's kind of like Jonah's time in the belly of this fish. Like it is a form of godly punishment and judgment for him to actually be in this fish right now. While it is salvation, this punishment actually is a version of salvation. This is a moment for Jonah to pause and reflect on really his disobedience. So I want us to take a moment and think just about your life and see your life through this story in a second. Like, how have you disobeyed your parents, God, trusted adults in your life recently? What ways are you, like Jonah, doing the opposite thing of what God has asked you to do? I don't know what it is. Let me give you some examples, maybe. Maybe you have been on your phone when you're not supposed to be. That you're taking it late night and you're being on, or you're using your iPad time past the time that your parents said to. And maybe you get in trouble and you've actually been cheating. You've been cheating on a test and there are consequences for that. Maybe you actually have backtalked a parent or a trusted adult, a coach, whatever it is. You've had a bad attitude. In each one of those moments, I don't know about you, but when I was in middle school, man, I got punished. I got disciplined. I got certain things taken away from me, privileges revoked. I lost the ability to watch TV. I couldn't go to that friend's house. I was grounded. There were consequences when I cheated on tests. When I lied in front of people, I actually got found out and the consequences were worse. I should have just told the truth the first time. When I backtalked my dad or my mom, it did not go well. And the discipline that they gave me was uncomfortable. And in the same way, this is the moment that Jonah is in. He is in a disciplined moment where it is actually uncomfortable. Imagine this. It's a smelly, stinky fish. If you've ever been in that part of the grocery store, it smells, it stinks. There's 3 days of that for Jonah. And I just want us to imagine in this moment, what if Jonah did not have this belly of the fish moment? What if he doesn't get a chance to reflect? Because here's the thing, living in this fish, it's not great. Discipline and punishment does not feel good. But if he does not have this moment, he does not live. He does not survive the chaos and destruction that the world has around him. Life in this fish is way better than outside of it. But he still runs. And so when I was a teenager, I told my dad I wanted to run away from home. I said, Dad, I am done. Like, I'm moving out. I think I can make enough money with my lawn cutting business that I had. You know, people hand me $20 when I mow their yard. I think I can survive on all that. And so my dad was like, go ahead, do it. I'll drop you off at the house and that's your first job. And then you can go from there. The house was about 2, 3, 4 miles away from the house I was living in at that time. And so my dad drops me off there and he says, hey, go for it. He gives me a full tank of gas and I start living alone. I finish the yard and then I realize I don't have a car. And so I can't drive, but I can walk. And so I actually decide to walk home. And so I walk home, but there's a creek that I have to jump over and end up jumping over it and then hurting myself. And then there's a barbed wire fence and I end up going through it and I cut my leg on it. It was not great. It was not a pleasant moment. I would have just rather have been better to stay in my dad's house, to not actually move out and not survive on my own. And so in the same way, 24/7, I would make the case, I would make the argument that having people that care about you, your small group leaders, your parents, your grandparents, staff here, trusted adults in your life, And being in a moment where there's actually discipline, where there's actually safety, where there's actually protection is way better than living a life of confusion and further disobedience. And I know trusted adults, people in your life, they tell you things you don't want to hear. They put restrictions on your life that feel discomforting. And even God's discipline in our life can feel like it's boxing us in. But I would just say, from lived experience, that actually punishment saves us and protects us from the chaos that would continue if we still acted that way. And that's what Jonah feels right in this moment. So he's 3 days in to his fishy timeout. And Jonah has had time to think and reflect on his near-death experience. He's had this moment. And so he prays this prayer after this 3 days. And I would say that we think that this prayer was written after the fact that he has had time to reflect. So imagine what we're going to read from here on out is a journal entry that Jonah has prayed, that he is thinking about his time in the fish, and then what God did in his response to all that. So this is in chapter 2, verse 1. It says this. It says that then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from inside the fish. And he said, I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered me. I called to you from the land of the dead, and Lord, you heard me. So if you did your pre-reading work in your book, this was the main point, is that underline this, is that God hears us. That even in this moment of discipline, even in this moment of punishment, God is still hearing the prayer that Jonah prays. And he hears us in this moment too. Verse 3, it says, you threw me into the ocean depths, and I sank down to the heart of the sea. So he's sinking. He's reflecting on this idea, is that he is drowning. He is certainly drowning. I mean, this image is showing what it looks like, that he is falling. He is not doing well. The mighty waters engulfed me. I was buried beneath your wild and stormy waves. And then I said, O Lord, you have driven me from your presence. Yet I will look once more toward your holy temple. That just means he's starting to think about God. He's starting to consider, what if this God who has thrown me into the waters now is actually the one who's saving me. Verse 5, it continues. Let's see what happens. He says, I sank beneath the waters and the waves, and the waters enclosed around me. Seaweed wrapped itself around my head. I sank down to the very roots of the mountain. I was imprisoned in the earth, whose gates lock shut forever. He's using this really strong language to just say he's dying. He's about to die. That seaweed has wrapped itself around his head. That his disobedience has caused this moment to happen. And I think for us in our life, it's similar in some ways. Maybe you don't have actual seaweed wrapped around your head, but I would say that there are certain sins in our lives that we feel like we are trapped in, that we can't escape. We keep doing them. Like we talked about at the retreat, maybe it's sexual sin in our lives that we feel trapped in, that we feel like we can't escape. Maybe you are a compulsive liar. You lie all the time to your parents, to people. You're trying to self-protect. You're just trying to lie just because you can. Maybe you're cheating on tests. You're cheating on assignments. You're using ChatGPT to help you write things. Maybe you're back-talking your parents, knowing that they deserve way better because they're your authority in your life. Like, this is trapping. This is the seaweed. This is the disobedience that it feels unescapable. You know that these are wrong things to do, but this is the world we're living in right now. And so how do we escape from this chaos? What gets us untangled from this moment? Well, what happened for Jonah and what happens for us as well is that an act of God actually saves us through necessary discipline. So you get caught. You backtalk, you get punished. You lie, there's consequences. Sexual sin exists in your life, then there's consequences for your body and for your life. This is the moment that Jonah is in. And here's what he does. It's crazy. He prays to God and actually thanks him for this moment. Look at this in chapter 2, verse 6. It's the last part of this verse. It says this. It says, but you, O Lord my God, snatched me from the jaws of death. Underline jaws of death. The way that God actually saves Jonah from the jaws of death, the ocean that was going to get him, is he actually uses jaws of life. He uses a fish. He uses a unlikely rescue to come. And this is super ironic because other translations will also say that you brought my life up from the pit. That God actually saved Jonah. And now he's thanking him. So I want you to think about this idea and see if you've ever done this in your life, because it's kind of crazy. Is that, have you ever thanked someone in authority over you for punishing you after you've disobeyed? Let me just pause there. So you get your phone taken away because you were using it when you're not supposed to. You lose certain privileges. You go to your parents and then say, thank you so much for that discipline. Thank you so much for punishing me. You really saved me. That's ludicrous. That's a crazy idea that we would actually thank people for punishing us. In the moment, why would I ever thank my parents? Why would I ever thank my coach for disciplining me in the moment? But this is a ludicrous idea, but this is exactly what Jonah does. He thanks God for being in the belly of a fish. And I think for us, there's application here, because we can thank God for sending us hard discipline. That it's way better for us to be in the belly of a fish than be alone drowning in the ocean. And so verse 7 says this, as my life was slipping away, I remember the Lord, and my earnest prayer went out to you in your holy temple. Jonah's praying, he's praying from the bottom of his heart. He's so honest with God. He's saying, my life was over, but you rescued me. I mean, have we ever said something like that to God? Have you ever said that? Or are your prayers shallow and fake? Like, have you ever prayed something like, God, thank you so much for sending my parents to me, for sending that trusted adult in my life? Like, even though they get on my nerves sometimes, God, I'm glad that I have people in my life that care about me and that will actually punish me so that I can live a better, like, that I can be saved from myself and the chaos of this world. That's crazy. But that's exactly what Jonah does. So let me skip down to verse 9. At the end, it says this, that Jonah says, for my salvation comes from the Lord alone. And here's the thing about Jonah, that it takes a great fish for him to realize that God is actually merciful. But I think for a lot of us, and Jonah, we're going to see in this story that he actually reluctantly goes to Nineveh later. But in this moment, he thanks God for only giving him what he wants. He only gives gratitude. We sing this song. I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. But we tend to only praise God and give gratitude towards the Lord for things that help us. When we get what we want, that's when we thank God. Like, we should be thanking God for the discipline as well. And unlike Jonah, we should obey God even when it isn't convenient. And so let me leave you with a couple questions just to think about. Is that, think about this. Have you ever disobeyed God, your parents, or trusted adults in your life? And if so, can discipline and punishment really be a good thing in your life? And then when that discipline comes, and if you've never been disciplined, I don't know what to say. But when that discipline comes, what is your response when God or people in authority over you discipline you and punish you? Are you thankful later in the moment when you've had time to reflect? Or are you sulking, indifferent? Or does that discipline lead to even more disobedience in your life? Because it's clear from Jonah's story that he thanks God with his hands raised in the belly of the fish. God, thank you for saving me from the chaos of the world. And that's exactly what Jesus does for us, guys. Is that he takes us from this place that we were certainly going to die. We were certainly headed in the wrong direction. And he dies on the cross. God sends his son to be a salvation for us. But it doesn't feel good in the moment. The discipline sucks, or it doesn't feel good. I won't say sucks. But we can respond, even right now, for what God has done in our lives. And we can be grateful for things. So we're going to take some time to think about these questions. So let's do that now. Let me pray.